Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah, ba'd. From the ahkam of the masjid, the person is asking here, if they have prayed Tahiyyah al-Masjid and they've entered into the masjid, then they left the masjid for whatever reason, and then they come back in, do they need to repeat the Tahiyyah al-Masjid? In Bukhari and Muslim, in the hadith of Abu Qatada, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, إِذَا دَخْلَ أَحَدُكُمْ الْمَسْجِدِ, if any of you enter into the masjid, فَلْيَرْكَعْ رَكَعَتَيْن, or in another hadith, فَلَا يَجْلِسْ حَتَّى يُصَلِّي رَكَعَتَيْن. He shouldn't sit down, or let him pray 2 rak'ahs before he sits down. I mean, different wordings, but this is the meaning from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Basically, Tahiyyah al-Masjid, a person shouldn't sit down until he has greeted the masjid with 2 rak'ahs. Now, the majority of the ulama have said that this is mustahab, and it is recommended, and it is not wajib, and it should be done, and it shouldn't be left out. But if a person leaves it out, then he is not sinful. But in regards to the question that we've got here now, the majority of the ulama have said 1 Tahiyyatul Masjid for the person when he has entered is sufficient. The Hanafis and the Malikis have said, in actual fact, once a day is sufficient. Once a day is sufficient. So say he does it in the morning at Fajr, for example, he doesn't need to do it for the rest of the day, because he's given the Tahiyyah, which is the greeting to the masjid. The Shafi'iyya, and I think this is the view of many of the Hanabila, this is the view of Ibn Taymiyyah and others from the Hanabila, that they have said, al-hukm yadur ma'illatih. The hukm is existent when the reason for the hukm is existent. Therefore, if the person has gone out and he's come back in, then the reason renews itself, so he needs to pray again. Every time the person goes in and out, then he needs to repeat and refresh the Tahiyyah al-Masjid. For me, what seems to be the correct view is that if the person has done the Tahiyyah al-Masjid with the niyyah of coming back, then he doesn't need to repeat. But if the person has left the masjid with no niyyah to come back, but then he comes back, then he needs to repeat. And for me, that seems to be the more balanced view. And this is the view of some of the contemporaries. And the dalil for this is that the Sahaba, they used to sit in i'tikaf. And it is well known at that time, I mean, this is the situation with many of the masajid in Muslim countries until today, that the wudu area and the bathroom facilities, etc., are not connected to the masjid. It's way outside, completely disconnected from the masjid. But this is how it used to be at the time of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu also, that they used to go towards the graveyard, Baqi al-Gharqad, to perform the wudu and to relieve themselves, and then they used to come back. And it's not been narrated that they used to renew the Tahiyyat al-Masjid. The Ahl al-Sufa, they used to stay in the masjid. It's not been narrated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu commanded for them to renew the Tahiyyat al-Masjid. And there are other narrations of Bukhari and Muslim. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu walks in. This is the Musii al-Salat, the person who prayed badly, where he says to him, "Arji' fasalli, go back and pray because you haven't prayed." In that hadith, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu walks in and he sits down. So these are all evidences and interpretations. I mean, all this is an issue of ijtihad, but what seems to be more correct is that if the person has the intention to come back, then he doesn't need to repeat. If the person has no intention to come back, then we renew the hadith, because إِذَا دَخْلَ أَحَدُكُمُ الْمَسْجِدِ, because now he is returning to the masjid. He's as if he's coming in fresh. فَلْيَرْكَعْ رَكَعَتَيْن قَبْلَ أَنْ يَجْلِسْ, or in another narration, let him pray 2 rak'ahs before he sits down. This is the mas'ala that the ulama have looked at. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes us of those who are connected to the masajid in the dunya, so He shades them with His shade on a day when there will be no shade except for His, on the day of judgment. Allah